Level 1. The courier. You are given a horse. You are given a satchel. You are given a sealed leather cylinder. You are told a name. You are told a road. You are not told anything else. The cylinder is stamped with wax. The wax is red. You do not touch the wax. You do not ask what is inside. You learn this on the first day. A man asks. He is no longer a courier. You watch him walk away. You do not know where he goes. You do not ask that either. The road north smells like wet clay and horse sweat and something burning far off that you cannot identify. Your thighs ache before the first posting station. Your hands are already cracked from the reins. You are 17 years old. That is the correct answer. The Imperial posting network is called the cursus publicus, and you are its lowest moving part. There are stations every 8 to 12 miles along the main roads. Stone buildings with stable hands who do not look at your face. They look at the leather satchel. They look at the bronze pass hanging at your belt. The diploma that authorizes you to requisition fresh horses, fresh food, a bed if there is one. You hand them the diploma. They hand you a horse. You do not sleep more than a few hours at any station because the road does not wait, and neither does whatever is inside the cylinder. You cover ground. That is the honest description of your life. You cover ground. The cylinder goes to a garrison commander outside Mediolanum. You hand it to his secretary. The secretary breaks the seal, reads, and his face does not change. You are already outside before the letter has been fully unrolled. You are back on a horse with a new cylinder and a new name and a different road. You will not know what was in the first letter. You will not know what is in this one. You carry words across the empire, and the words are never yours. What you are given, concretely, a daily grain ration, access to Imperial road infrastructure, a small bronze badge that makes innkeepers nervous, and a wage that covers your sandals if you replace them no more than once a year. What you learn, that a horse's gait changes when it is close to failing, that you can feel it through the saddle before the animal shows any visible sign. You learn to read road surfaces in the dark. You learn which station masters are honest and which ones will short your grain ration and look through you when you complain. You learn not to complain. There are things no one tells you that you piece together over months. The cylinders sometimes travel in pairs, the same message dispatched by two different routes in case one courier does not arrive. You learn this when you reach a commander who reads the cylinder with a flat expression and says only that the other one came 4 days ago. You are the redundancy. That is also the correct answer. You are a system, not a person, and the system does not care that your right knee has begun to ache in cold weather after a fall outside Bononia that you got up from without complaint because there was no one watching and no one to tell. You start to recognize other couriers at the posting stations. You exchange nods. You do not exchange names. Names are not part of the transaction. After 14 months of this, a man in a plain wool traveling cloak watches you arrive at the Rome station. He watches how you hand off the cylinder. He watches how you do not linger. He watches how you ask no questions. He makes a note on a wax tablet and says nothing to you. A week later, you receive orders. They are not about delivering anything. They are about watching. Level 2, the junior inspector. Your tablet is new. That is the first thing people notice. The wax is clean, the stylus unmarked, and anyone who has been doing this longer than 6 months can read exactly what that means. You carry it anyway. You carry it to the Mancio at Capua, where the smell of horse dung and boiled grain meets you at the gate, and you present your diplomata to the station master, and you write down numbers. This is your assignment. Count the horses. Count how many arrive, how many depart, how many are lame, how many are borrowed by men whose authorization papers are slightly irregular in ways you are not yet senior enough to question. You count. You write. You hand the tablet to your supervising frumentarius at the end of the week, and he reads it without looking at you, and he says nothing, and that is the correct answer. You do not yet understand that the horses are not the point. You understand it slowly. The way you understand most things in the frumentarii now, not through instruction but through the accumulation of small wrong notes. A courier arrives from the eastern road, and his papers list him as a grain assessor, but his hands have no ink on them, and he does not look at the grain stores once. A senator's freedman passes through twice in 1 month. You would not have noticed the second time, except that his sandals are the same, and you have started, without being told to, noticing sandals. You write none of this in the official count. You write horse numbers. At night, in the room above the stable that smells of old straw and the sweat of 100 previous travelers, You write other things on a second tablet that you keep inside your tunic. Your supervising frumentarius asks to see it 3 weeks in. He reads it standing up, by lamplight, and his face does not change. He hands it back and tells you to keep going. That counts for something. You eat at the common table with the station master's staff. You learn to ask questions that sound like boredom. You learn to let other people explain things, because people who are explaining feel in control, and people who feel in control say more than they intend to. You ask a stable hand about the quality of the Capuan horses compared to those from the north. He talks for 40 minutes. By the end, you know his brother-in-law moves messages for a man whose name your supervisor wrote in the margin of a briefing 3 months ago without explanation. You go back upstairs. You write it down. Your fingers are always cold. The Mancio walls are stone, and the small charcoal brazier in your room produces more smoke than heat. You have a cough that started in Brundisium and has not left. Your meals are whatever the station kitchen makes, which is mostly lentils and bread, gone hard at the edges, and you eat it because it is there, and because you have learned that fastidiousness about food is a luxury carried by men whose work keeps them in one city. You have been in 4 cities in 2 months. You write letters home that say very little. You describe the roads. You describe the weather. You do not describe your work because your work has no official description, and anyway you are starting to understand that the practice of not describing things is itself a skill, one that your supervising frumentarius has mastered so completely that you have never once heard him say directly what he is looking for. You learn by inference. You learn by watching what he marks on your reports, and what he leaves unmarked. You learn that some names, once written, change the weight of the document they are written on. You are learning which names those are. You are not yet trusted with what to do once you have them. That comes later. For now you count horses, you keep your second tablet dry, and you notice sandals. You are getting very good at noticing sandals. Level 3, the patrol inspector. You have a horse now. 2, actually, 1 for the road, 1 held at the relay station at the midpoint of your circuit, so you always have a fresh animal when you need to move fast. The Imperial post system provides them. You requisition feed, shoes, and stabling through a document called a diploma, a small wax-sealed tablet that carries more authority than a sword in most of the towns you pass through. You know this. You use this. Your circuit runs 112 miles. You ride it every 30 days without variation, stopping at 11 designated points, way stations, garrison posts, river crossings, and the kind of market towns where the roads from 2 provinces meet and money moves in ways the treasury has not been told about. You have a route. You have a schedule. Everyone on that route has memorized your schedule too, which is the first problem you inherited when you took this posting and the one you have never fully solved. The stable master at Aquileia always has the records ready when you arrive. Too ready. Columns of figures in fresh ink that have clearly been copied from somewhere else in the last hour, the corner of the original wax tablet still warm when you press your thumb against it. You ask him about a mule registered to a cavalry detachment that passed through 6 weeks ago and is no longer in the stable. He gives you an answer. The answer accounts for the mule. You write it down. That is the correct answer. You both know it isn't true. This is the texture of your days. The innkeeper at the 3rd milestone past a teste pours you wine you didn't ask for and seats you where you can see the door. The road overseer at the Padus crossing has a cousin in the urban cohorts in Rome, which he mentions within 4 sentences every single time you meet. The local magistrate at Iulia Concordia addresses you by a rank 1 grade higher than you actually hold, which is a compliment that is also a small bribe. You eat their food, you drink their wine, you write your reports. Your reports go to the frumentarius office in Mediolanum. A senior frumentarius reads them, annotates them, and passes summary findings up through a chain you have never seen the top of. You rarely hear what happens after. Twice in the last year you flagged irregularities. A grain shipment short by roughly 400 modii, and a relay station keeper using Imperial horses for private haulage. And nothing came back. Not a dismissal, not an inquiry, not even an acknowledgement that your report was received. The 3rd time you flagged something, you wrote it up in detail and then set the draft aside for 2 days before sending a shorter version. You are learning. Your back has been wrong since the winter. 11 months of 40-mile days in a military saddle leave something in the lower spine that does not leave back. You sleep on in-beds that are too short and too hard, and smell of the previous occupant. You eat at the hours available, not the hours you choose. You have missed your brother's wedding, your mother's illness, and some number of ordinary evenings at home that you stopped counting. What you have is clarity. You know every customs officer on the Via Postumia by name, by temperament, and by price. You know which garrison commander keeps sloppy records and which one keeps perfect records that are also false. You know the smell of a freshly altered document, a particular combination of new wax and old papyrus, and you know it because you have smelled it 11 times in 11 different hands, and it is always the same. This is knowledge nobody gave you. You built it mile by mile in the saddle, in the cold, in the rooms where people smiled at you and hoped you would not notice. You notice. At Mediolanum, someone in the office has already begun asking whether your observations might be more useful delivered from inside rather than riding past. You will hear more about this at your next rotation. Level 4, the embedded agent. Your cover is administrative. You are attached to the governor's staff as a commentariensis, a record keeper, someone who manages correspondence and tracks the flow of petitions up from the provinces. The appointment comes through legitimate channels. There is a letter with a real seal. There is a posting order that would survive inspection. This is what makes the frumentarii different from informers who simply lurk and whisper in taverns. You are placed. You belong. You eat at the same table as the men you are watching, and the food is considerably better than anything you have eaten in 4 years. Leptis magna in summer smells like rendered fat and sea salt, and the particular dusty sweetness of cedar that comes off the administrative buildings when the afternoon heat opens the wood. The governor's residence has tiled floors that stay cool until the 3rd hour past noon. You notice this because your previous posting had dirt floors. You do not mention this to anyone. The governor is named Gaius Petronius Marcellus, and he is 53 years old, and tired in the way that men become tired when the empire has given them just enough to want more. Within the first month, you have established yourself as competent and unobtrusive. That is the correct answer. You file documents accurately, you are available when needed, and invisible when not. You ask careful questions about administrative procedure, and you listen to everything else. You write nothing down in the residence. You commit it to memory, and you write it later, alone, using the abbreviation system you were trained on wax that you smooth before dawn. By the 2nd month, he is complaining to you about the legate of the 3rd cohort. By the 3rd month, he is telling you about the money. Not all of it, not at once. It comes out the way these things always come out, in pieces, framed as frustration, framed as injustice. He believes he has been underpaid for his service. He believes certain contracts in the province should rightfully carry a consideration. He uses the word consideration. You nod. You express nothing. Inside, you are counting. You are cataloging. You are building the architecture of a man's destruction, one offhand remark at a time, and it does not feel like anything in particular. That is the thing they do not tell you when you are promoted to this level. It does not feel like anything. You will think about that later, in a different city, and you will find that later does not actually resolve it. Your reports go back to Rome in the correspondence pouch, disguised as routine administrative summaries, flagged with the notation that marks them for frumentarii review at the central office. You have a contact you meet twice a month at a fuller's workshop near the port. You hand him nothing. You speak quietly for a few minutes. He nods. That is the whole thing. What you have at this level, a room in the governor's house with shuttered windows and a real bed with a wool mattress. A small salary supplement paid in silver that does not appear in any ledger. Access. The specific access of a man who is trusted and should not be. You attend dinners where senators speak freely because you are staff, and staff do not count. You count everything. What you do not have, the ability to tell anyone your actual name. You have a cover name. You have used it long enough that your cover name is beginning to feel more natural in your mouth than the one your mother used. You write her no letters. The frumentarii strongly advise against personal correspondence. You miss the festival of Lupercalia for the 4th consecutive year, and you know this not because you feel it, but because you marked it in your memory, the same way you mark everything now, as information. Gaius Petronius Marcellus will be recalled to Rome inside of 6 months. His property will be assessed. You will already be somewhere else. The next posting is waiting. Level 5, the senior operative. Your warrant is stamped with the Imperial seal and the signature of the frumentarius prefect. You carry it in a leather tube worn against your ribs, inside your tunic, where it stays warm from your skin. You have carried it so long that you no longer think about it. It is simply part of your body now, like a healed scar. You hand it to the station master at the Cursus Publicus relay and watch his face change. He was about to tell you there were no horses. He was about to explain that a provincial governor's courier had priority. Then he reads the seal. He does not finish the sentence. He calls for the groom. You are mounted and moving within 4 minutes. That counts for something. You have learned that power in this empire is mostly a question of paper. Who signed it? Whose wax is pressed into it? The legions hold the frontiers, the senators debate in marble rooms, but the actual machinery of imperial control runs on documents. You are one of the people who makes that machinery move. You have no rank that anyone outside your network would recognize. You wear a merchant's cloak, a soldier's boots, a craftsman's hands. You are whatever the situation requires you to be. The frumentari do not advertise themselves. That is the point. A regional magistrate in Cappadocia tries to deny you access to his tax ledgers. He cites provincial statute. He is polite about it, which means he thinks you are ordinary. You produce the warrant. You watch him read it twice. You watch him realize that the statute he cited does not apply to you, has never applied to people like you, will not protect him if you decide his obstruction is worth reporting. He opens the storeroom himself. He brings you a lamp. He offers you wine, which you decline, because you are still working. You spend 6 hours with the ledgers. You find what you came for. You say nothing to him when you leave. Your back is a problem now. Years of hard riding on military roads, sleeping on stable floors or in roadside inns with straw pallets and thin blankets. Your spine has opinions about all of it. You eat standing when you can. Sitting too long tightens something in your lower left side that does not release until you walk a quarter mile. You have developed habits that strangers find strange. You sit with your back to walls. You count exits before you do anything else. You eat quickly. You sleep lightly. You have not slept deeply, the way you slept as a child, in perhaps 7 years. You do not think of this as a problem. You think of it as calibration. There is a name you do not speak aloud, a contact in Antioch, someone who fed information to a provincial commander who was building unauthorized loyalty among his auxiliaries. The commander has been recalled. The contact was useful. The contact is no longer useful. You wrote the report. You did not watch what happened after the report. That is someone else's task. The frumentarii do not execute. They observe, they report, they facilitate. The distinction matters to you. You are not certain why it still does. You have started to notice the junior operatives, the ones who carry themselves too stiffly, who reach for the warrant too quickly before they have tried other methods, who have not yet understood that the warrant is more powerful before it is shown. You were one of them. You remember the particular feeling of wanting to use the thing you had been given. You do not try to teach them this. They will learn it or they will not. The ones who learn it will be where you are. The ones who do not will be assigned to grain shipment inspections in Pannonia for the rest of their careers. Your next warrant is already prepared. A regional investigator position. Permanent posting. Your own network to run. You leave at first light. Level 6. The regional investigator. You have a desk now. Not a corner of someone else's desk. Not a stool beside a brazier where you wrote reports while the wax dried faster than you could think. Your own desk. Cedarwood, scratched along the left side from some previous occupant you never met and never asked about. That counts for something. The title is Frumentarius Regionalis. You say it quietly to yourself sometimes, not from pride, but because the syllables help you remember what you are supposed to be doing in rooms where the purpose is never stated plainly. What you are supposed to be doing is watching. A province has thousands of people moving through it daily. Merchants, soldiers rotating between garrisons, tax collectors, priests of a dozen cults, half of them legal, 2 of them worth a second look, letters in transit, wagons carrying grain or iron or something heavier than either. You are the mechanism by which the office in Rome understands what the province actually is, as opposed to what the governor's dispatches claim it to be. Those are often different things. The governor knows you are here. He does not know which of his own staff you have spoken to. That is by design. You travel with no insignia. You carry a sealed authorization, folded into oilcloth inside your belt, which theoretically compels any officer of the imperial administration to cooperate with your inquiries. Theoretically. In practice, a garrison commander in a border town will look at that document for a long time before he says anything. You have learned to let him look. You have learned that silence, held correctly, is more useful than any question you could ask. Your reports go directly to the regional chief. Every word is weighed before you write it. Not for honesty, you have always been honest, more or less, but for precision. There is a difference between writing that a merchant named Drusus Servianus met 3 times with a known associate of the faction under observation, and writing that Drusus Servianus is involved in seditious activity. The first sentence is a fact, the second is a sentence. You have seen what happens when investigators conflate them. You do not conflate them. But you have also learned the shape of a report, where to place a detail so that it catches the light, which facts to list first, so that the ones following them carry a particular weight. A report about Drusus Servianus that opens with his meetings, follows with his debts, and closes with his brother's posting near the armory reads very differently than the same facts in a different order. You know the order. You use the order. You tell yourself this is craft. Most days you believe it. Your knees ache in the cold. You have been sleeping on military cots and inn pallets for 6 years, and your lower back has opinions about this. You eat when the work allows it, which is not as often as a physician would advise. You have a persistent ringing in your left ear from a winter spent in a garrison town where a smith worked through the night, every night, on something nobody would tell you about. You filed a report about that too. The informants you manage now are not the minor street sources of your earlier years. These are people with access, a secretary to a provincial legate, a freedman who handles correspondence for a shipping concern with contracts across 4 provinces, a woman who runs a fuller's shop near the barracks and notices which soldiers come in agitated and which ones come in with money they did not have the week before. You meet them in different places. You never use their names in writing. You remember their faces more clearly than you remember some of your families. You have not been home in 2 years. There is nothing dramatic to say about that. At the end of each month, your reports travel north by Imperial post. Someone in the regional office reads them, annotates them, forwards some portion to Rome. Whether they are acted on, you are not told. The next regional chief is watching you work. Level 7, the regional chief. You have an office now. It is a real room, with a door that closes, in a building that the locals know better than to walk past twice. The desk is heavy wood. There is a lamp that smokes slightly, no matter what oil you use. You have stopped noticing the smell. That counts for something. Your title, within the internal structure of the frumentarii, is Regionarius. You do not use that title out loud. You use a cover, a grain supply administrator, a road surveyor's liaison, something tedious enough that no one asks follow-up questions. The cover is worn smooth from use. You barely think about it anymore. It fits the way an old shoe fits, comfortable, ugly, not worth inspecting too closely. You manage 11 men across 4 provinces. You have never met 2 of them in person. You communicate through a system of couriers, coded insertions into legitimate grain requisition documents, and a set of prearranged symbols scratched into the margins of routine tax declarations. The system works. You designed most of it. You are quietly proud of this, in the way you are allowed to be proud of things that cannot be spoken of. Here is what the job actually is. Every month, your men send you reports. The reports contain observations, rumors, names, accusations, suspicions half-formed and suspicions fully formed, and suspicions that are simply personal grudges dressed in bureaucratic language. Your job is to read all of it, decide what is signal and what is noise, and then write the summary that goes north to Rome, to the offices above yours, to men whose names you know but whose faces you may never see again. You decide what the capital hears. That is an enormous amount of power. It is also an enormous amount of responsibility, and the two do not feel the same. You have learned, slowly and at cost, that accuracy is not the point. The point is utility. A true report that embarrasses someone with connections disappears. A report that inflates the loyalty of a governor who has cultivated the right relationships gets commended. You write what will be believed. You write what will be used. You have told yourself that this is the same as writing what is true. Some nights this argument holds, other nights it does not. Your left knee is unreliable now. The old wound from a surveillance operation outside Antioch never healed clean. Cold mornings are an announcement. You keep a stick behind the desk and put it away before meetings. You have lost 2 informants this year. One was discovered and killed, which is a professional failure you have analyzed in detail and cannot fully explain. The other simply stopped making contact. You do not know if he is dead or if he decided to disappear into the provinces and become someone with no history. You find yourself hoping, when you allow yourself to hope, that it is the second one. You do not write this hope down anywhere. The men you supervise are good at their work. Several of them are better liars than you ever were, which is why they are still in the field and you are behind the heavy desk. You read their reports and you can see the craft in them, the careful angles, the omissions that are themselves a kind of information. You correct their grammar. You clarify their cover documentation. You never tell them they have done well. Approval creates expectation. Expectation creates leverage. You were taught this, you teach it now. There is a man in Lugdunum whose name appears in 3 separate reports from 3 separate men who do not know each other. They have not been directed toward him, they simply noticed him. You have read his name 11 times this week. You have not yet decided what to do with it. You will decide by morning. You always do. The regional chief of the next tier, the corps commander, runs 4 offices like yours. You have met him once. He looked at you the way you look at your men. You understood immediately. Level 8, the corps commander. The document on your desk is a transfer request. The man who filed it has served 18 years in the Frumentari without a single adverse notation. His record is clean. His informant network in the Danube provinces is genuinely productive. He is requesting a posting closer to Rome because his mother is dying. You read the request once. You set it aside. You will get to it when you get to it. And the man in the Danube provinces will spend the next 4 months not knowing if his life is about to change, and that uncertainty is not cruelty on your part. That is just what your desk looks like. You hold the administrative authority over every frumentarius in active deployment, which means you control the posting ledgers, the commendation registers, the disciplinary files, and the supply requisitions for a network that stretches from Britannia to the Euphrates. The building where you work smells of pine resin and old papyrus. The light comes through high, narrow windows and falls across stacks of wooden tablets in varying states of urgency. Your clerks move quietly. They have learned to read your silences. There is a notation system you inherited from your predecessor and have refined over 11 years. A single mark in the margin of a quarterly assessment, a small diagonal line, nothing more, means the officer in question is being monitored for reassignment. 2 lines mean the reassignment is imminent. 3 lines mean the file is being forwarded to the Inspector General. Nobody outside this office knows what the marks mean. Inside this office, everybody knows. Your clerks never discuss it. That counts for something. Tribunes come to you with problems they cannot take upward and will not take downward. A frumentarius in Syria has developed a relationship with a merchant who also supplies information to a regional governor who is being watched. The conflict does not technically violate protocol. It is the kind of thing that does not technically violate protocol. The tribune stands across the desk from you and explains this carefully. You listen. You ask one question. You send him out with an instruction that does not appear anywhere in writing, and the problem resolves itself within a month, and nobody traces the resolution back to your office. That is the correct answer. Your knees ache on the marble floors. You have been walking on marble for 23 years, and your body has an opinion about this that you do not share with anyone. You sleep 5 hours when you sleep well. You eat standing over your desk more often than you sit for a meal. You have a wife who has learned to conduct the household as though you are a guest, who arrives irregularly and leaves without notice. You have 2 sons. The elder one asks you questions about your work, with a brightness in his eyes that you find difficult to look at directly. The political texture of the Frumentari shifts with every new emperor, every new favorite, every turn in the palace's internal weather. You have outlasted 3 emperors. You did this by being indispensable to the apparatus rather than to any particular man inside it. This requires a specific kind of attention to the difference between loyalty and usefulness, and you stopped confusing the two a long time ago. There is a senator whose correspondence you have been reading for 7 years. He writes to his nephew in Carthage. He writes to a property manager in Capua. He writes occasionally to a woman in Ostia, whose relationship to him you have never fully mapped. Nothing in 7 years of letters has produced anything actionable. You keep reading them. You file the summaries. Somewhere in the building there is a record of everything this man has said in private for the better part of a decade, and he does not know you exist. The transfer request is still on your desk. You pick it up again. You make a notation, not 3 lines, not 2. You make 1 line, diagonal, and place the document in the left-hand stack. The man in the Danube provinces will be waiting a while longer. Level 9, the Inspector General. Your seal arrives before you do. That is intentional. By the time your carriage rolls through the gates of Antioch, or Alexandria, or Lugdunum, the governor has already burned 3 documents, promoted his cousin's son out of the record, and sent a gift to your accommodations. You let him. You already know what the documents said. You have been reading his correspondence for 4 months. The frumentari report to you now. Not to the prefect, not to the governor, to you. You sit in cities that belong to other men, and you ask questions that no one else in the empire is permitted to ask. The questiones extraordinariae, the extraordinary inquiries, fall under your authority when they involve the senatorial class. You can summon a proconsul, you can depose him in front of his own staff, you can remand him to Rome in chains pending imperial review. You do this with paperwork. That is the frightening part. You do this with a sealed letter and a signature, and a junior clerk who reads the order aloud in a voice that does not waver, because you have trained him not to let it. The title is Frumentarius Prefectus Extraordinarius, though no one says that. They say Inspector General. They say it quietly, and they say it from a distance. You travel with 4 bodyguards who are not enough. You know they are not enough. You've done the mathematics on what a motivated governor could hire, and you've concluded that your real protection is your correspondence, the daily sealed dispatches that go directly to the office of the Master of Offices in Rome. As long as those dispatches continue, you are useful. As long as you are useful, you are alive. You write them every morning before the sun is fully up, in a room with 1 door that you have already mapped for exits. Your knees have not improved. The carriage roads of the eastern provinces are badly maintained, and you feel every stone of them now across 600 miles of your most recent circuit. Your left ear rings when you sleep on your right side, and when you sleep on your left side, you don't sleep at all. You carry the names of 11 men you have referred for imperial action. You do not say their names aloud. 3 of them are dead, 2 by their own hand, which is a mercy the Romans have always allowed their condemned, 1 by means that appear on no official record. You do not ask about the one who left no record. In the evening, the governor hosts you at dinner. He smiles, his wife smiles, his secretary smiles with his eyes somewhere else. The wine is very good, because the wine is always very good. You eat. You ask about the harvest assessments in the 3rd district, and you watch the governor's left hand. He sets down his cup a half-second slower than he should. You say nothing. You file it in the part of your memory that does not sleep, and you let him believe the dinner went well. It did not go well for him. By morning, you will have requested a copy of the 3rd District harvest records going back 7 years. The clerk who retrieves them will have been told he is being honored with the task. That is the correct answer. That is always the correct answer. You leave Antioch on a cold morning with your 4 guards and your daily dispatch already sealed and in transit to Rome. Behind you, the governor stands at the gate of the city and watches your carriage until it disappears. He is wondering what you found. He is wondering if it is enough to end him. It is. You simply have not decided yet when to send it. The road east is long. Your knees settle into the familiar ache of the suspension. You open your next file. Carthage. A proconsul. Allegations of grain ledger manipulation across 4 consecutive seasons. You begin reading. Level 10. The Master of Offices. Your seal is on everything. The arms factories at Antioch and Thessalonica send you monthly tallies of swords produced, spear shafts counted, helmets inspected. You sign the tallies. You sign the transfer orders. You sign the authorization for the agentes in rebus to carry new warrants into new provinces. Every piece of paper that moves through the palace machinery passes through a door you hold the key to, and the key is heavier than you expected when you first reached for it. Your title is Magister Officiorum. You say it rarely. Everyone already knows what you are. The office smells like beeswax and old papyrus, and something faintly metallic, which may be the ink or may be your imagination. You arrive before the palace wakes. The lamps are still burning from the night before. Your scriniarii, your clerks of the Imperial Bureau, are already at their tables because they know what time you arrive, and they have learned what happens to the ones who aren't ready when the door opens. You don't shout. You don't need to. Your silence does the work now. You oversee the Scholae Palatinae, the palace guard. You watch men in formation, and you think about the last Magister Officiorum who had their loyalty. You think about how quickly that changed. You think about it every morning, looking at their faces. The emperor receives you twice a week in formal audience, and 3 or 4 times a week informally, which means he sends for you when something frightens him. Something frequently frightens him. You stand close enough to watch his hands when he reads the reports your agentes have compiled, dispatches from the curiosi watching the roads, intelligence summaries from the notary, who sit in rooms where secrets are spoken. His hands tell you things his face is trained not to show. You have become an expert in hands. Yours are steady. They have been steady for years. You don't remember exactly when that happened. You eat one meal a day. You sleep on a narrow cot in a room adjacent to your office, because going home takes time you don't have, and because you stopped entirely trusting the people who know where you live. Your knees ache on the stone floors. Your left ear has been ringing since a palace fire 3 years ago, and the ringing has become so familiar it feels like silence now. You have canceled the careers of 4 men this year. You have elevated 2. The 4 do not know why, and will never ask. The 2 will spend years trying to understand what they owe you, which is exactly the correct answer. There are names you carry that you do not speak aloud, men who brought you information that changed things, men who were then transferred to provinces far enough away that their absence would not register as significant. You don't know what happened to all of them after that. You know what happened to some of them. You sign the papers and you don't write those names anywhere. The emperor has begun looking at you the way you once looked at your predecessor. You notice it. You have always been good at noticing things. That is how you got here. That is also what you carry now. Every morning, when you walk past the skole and watch their faces watch you. There is a young man at the gate today. He is newly arrived from one of the Pannonian provinces, vouched for by a senator who owes someone a favor. He has a travel document stamped with a station seal he doesn't fully understand yet. He is 19, maybe 20. His boots are good, but his eyes are not careful enough. He doesn't know yet what careful eyes look like. He is looking at the palace walls with something that is either wonder or ambition. From this distance you cannot tell the difference. He is about to hand his papers to an agentes in rebus, who will record his name in a register you will read by lamplight tonight. He has no idea what he is walking into. They never do. The cycle continues.